How's it going, everybody? We were talking a little while ago about having an astrologer on, right? And we found somebody. His name is Rick Levine. And I thought we were just having, you know, an astrologer guy, like somebody that's a little bit cuckoo. This dude is the astrologer. He's got credentials, okay? He's written books. He's written what are those called, like the columns or whatever in newspapers. He has seminars, he has shows, he teaches at colleges and stuff. This guy he's got a brain on him, all right? He's got a little bit of a mind on him. And in this episode, he maps out our charts. Mine, then Poob's, and then Bryan's. I don't want to spoil nothing, but it's kind of fucking scary. And he's a little bit wordy, all right? But I didn't want you guys just going balls deep into like this nerdy shit. So be prepared, okay? But I think it's awesome. All right, personally, I think it's one of the cooler episodes we've done. So without further ado, Rick Levine, astrology extraordinaire, best shirts in the game on Forehead Fables. Thank you for watching.
Well, I have no sense of judgment. I like everything.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you're like the opposite of Bryan.
Yeah, you're like the opposite of us. Yeah, we're judgy,
we don't like
little
any
mean people.
Damn.
Not true.
No, so we have really no understanding of astrology at all, and we were. You seem like the guy with the Poob knows a little bit.
Baseline. I dated
He's
a girl
got
that was
baseline
into astrology, so
yeah.
I get the baselines of it.
And it's used a lot nowadays, right?
Apparently,
it's becoming bigger and bigger. It seems like,
For
and
pulling
it's becoming bigger and bigger because the universe is expanding.
Oh, yeah.
We've been a little bit of a conquest too. We've been getting guests from all over.
Yeah,
you know, we had Tolden Stone, we had Windigoon talking about
history,
religion.
and we got like fantasy history, and now we got like
have astrology. Yeah, we're trying
so
to
we're
cover
around.
We're trying to get as well rounded as possible.
It's normally just like gamers, which
yeah.
can get tiresome.
They stink. They're stupid. They don't really know anything other than games.
Yeah,
you know?
Astrology is like the ultimate game.
Oh, like that.
Okay, well now I'm sitting up. All right.
I thought that was like gambling.
Is this more of a console thing or is it a computer type game? Is this tabletop?
It's artificial reality that appears to be real.
Ooh.
I also have to comment, that shirt is awesome.
I was about to say.
Shirt.
Oh.
It's a great shirt.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. I was like, hey, we should have an astrology guy on because we don't know anything about it. We need someone to explain it to us as if we're idiots. And I sent Poob on the quest to find an astrology guy. He sends me your channel, and that's what I noticed from every video is just you have the most badass button-up shirts with like moons and stars and stuff on them. It's like if Dumbledore had an office job. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish you could. It doesn't matter. Yeah. I don't know how good this is, but you see that bookshelf and everything back there, all the way back there.
Yeah.
This is my business card, and the lighting on this. I mean, the guy who did this was amazing. No Photoshop in this. There we go. I'm getting a reflection.
What kind of cardstock is that?
Yeah. Shiny. It's nice.
Yeah, it's just a glossy card.
We were gonna do a business card, and then we gave up on that.
Yeah.
What happened? What happened to that? Huh?
Well, I mean, like, what were we gonna do? Like, pass it out via email?
I thought we were gonna go to
we don't go out enough.
TwitchCon, the convention of gamers.
That's true, and pass them out. Yeah.
I love that. That whole backdrop is cool. It's a great spot for a photo in that chair.
Well, and when I do, I mean, I in effect, I have two offices. I'm sitting at my desk with, two huge screens and all my toys. But on that end of the room, in about 10 minutes, I set up my other recording thing. Most of my YouTube stuff is done back there on a laptop. And it's just a bit, different, but this is my home office. It's where I live when I'm home. I
went out of my way and I acquired the time I was born, and the day I was born.
Is that really
I
that
was-
important?
I was
Is that like
wondering.
I told
If-
you it's important. Yeah.
Yeah,
the time? Even the time?
Yes, I do. I
the
wasn't
time is
joking.
also very
Well,
important.
here's the deal. We're jumping in. Okay,
Okay.
can I go?
That was
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah.
So the bottom line is really simple, that the ancient mystics have, as far back as we can go, had this idea that everything that's on the outside is a reflection of everything that's on the inside. You've probably heard the saying, as above, so below. It comes from an old Egyptian carving on a tablet called the Emerald Tablet. And it's basically everything on the outside and everything on the inside are one and the same. And that's, modern quantum physics has begun to go to that place where scientists are saying that nothing happens on the outside until we observe it. There's this kind of mirror going on. Psychology kind of says the same thing, that basically everything in our lives are some sort of projection of our internal, frame of reference or whatever. And the basic underlying principle of astrology is very simple. And that is that when we look up there and out there, we're actually looking down here and in here, and that the two are in fact one and the same. And the crazy thing from an astrologer's point of view is that one of maybe the basic prayer of all of Christianity, called the Lord's Prayer, says, "It is done on earth as it is in heaven." And that's all astrology says. Of course, they then say astrology is bullshit, but that's more political than anything else.
So, could you theoretically,
Yes.
could you talk to someone at length and do like a psychoanalysis of them and then determine what their
well,
sign
let's
is,
let's
so to
leave
speak?
that judgment up to you guys. Once you give me, we don't have to do this right yet, but we'll go there. You'll give me your birth date, place, and time. And yeah, Bryan, here's why time is important. And that with knowing, you see, every year on your birthday, so when don't you just tell me what day of the year you were born?
May 31st.
All right. So every year on May 31st, the Earth has gone all the way around the sun. And within a day, because our calendar is a little fucked up and isn't quite accurate, but every day, every year on May 31st, the Earth has gone around the sun one more time. And if you draw a straight line from the Earth to the sun, and then keep going and going and going and going, you come up to that area of sky that we maybe arbitrarily call Taurus, or Gemini, actually, by May 31st. And so what astrology does is, by knowing what year you were born, we only know one thing, and that is the relationship between the Earth and the sun. Meanwhile, the moon is going around the Earth some almost 13 times every year, and Saturn takes nearly 30 years to go around the sun once, and Pluto takes almost 250 years, 248 years to go around once. And when an astrologer does a birth chart of where all the planets were from the point of view when you were born, the first thing that we do is we calculate, or these days push a button and let the computer calculate, from Earth's point of view where it looked like the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and maybe a bunch of other crap that many astrologers use or don't use. And all of that gets put into a picture that shows their geometric relationship with all the other planets in the chart. Now, that's all fine and dandy, and only knowing the birth date and year, because every year on May 31st, the only thing that's back in the same place from Earth's point of view is the sun. That's why everyone knows their sign. We know our sign because that's consistent year to year to year to year, but everything else changes. But here's the thing, Bryan, and that is that the most important thing in astrology is the plane of reference. What's on the horizon? What's up above? What's down below? And that's determined by the time of day, which is why the time of day, which changes all the way through the 360 degrees every day, because the earth spins around every day. So every day we have a sunrise and a sunset. Well, Buckminster Fuller said, well, the sun never rises or sets. It's the earth spinning. We actually have a sunset in the morning and a sun eclipse in the evening. But every day, every planet appears like it rises and every planet appears like it sets. And that's why we need the time of day.
So very important is what you're saying, because we had a therapist on a couple years ago, and he wasn't able to crack Bryan, and so I like, if we have your date, like your time,
you're gonna use the cosmos to crack my
dude. This guy's he's gonna be the one that's gonna be able to figure you out, man.
Hey, I'm a crackhead. I can crack anything. No, wait, that came out wrong.
Bryan, go call your mom real quick. Go call
take
her.
a guess. Take a guess. What time do you think I was born?
I'm terrible at guessing, but I have a very funny. I have a very funny Bryan story. Bryan, hang around one second.
No, So there I was.
Do you think I was born? Come on.
I have no
guess. Come on, just a guess, man. I'll give you. September 10th.
I guess that you were born sometime between midnight and noon, or between noon and midnight.
Noon?
I have no idea.
Dude, he's got them biceps. What time do you think those things were born?
No, wait, so listen. Noon? There I was at this bar in Bali, and the person I was with knew the owner and told the owner I was an astrologer, and the astrologer says, "Oh, can you do my chart?" I said, "Yeah, I had my computer with me." I said, "Sure." And I said, what's your birthday? He told me. He goes, "What time of day were you born?" He goes, I don't know. Hang on a second. He pulls out his cell phone. This is from Ubud, Bali. And he calls his mother in Brooklyn. It's like 4 a.m. there or something. Mom, what time of day was I born? That guy's name was Bryan. That was the punchline.
I've had to do that before. I've had to send a text to my mom and ask when I was born.
He did it for coochie. That's not that important. It was for a girl.
Was it a Tinder thing?
Yeah, it was a Tinder thing. It was it was a date. We were on a date. We met in person.
Yeah.
And it was for the girl's curiosity, and I had no issue figuring out. I mean, my mom, I think she replied too. She was like, "Get out! Like, get out of there! Get out!" I think my mom's also like into some astrology stuff, so. I know I was born between my mom doesn't even know exactly. She said like 3 to 4 p.m.
Yeah, well, for me, that's good enough. That's good enough to at least go on. Although, where were you born? Where?
Well, this part would need to probably be cut out of the podcast because we don't reveal like a ton of personal information.
You don't. I can tell you the room I was born in.
No,
hospital.
but
does state matter? Is state okay, or do I have to be specific?
Yeah, actually, the state is all I need to know.
Okay, it was Indiana.
Okay, so Indiana actually keeps records. If you were born in the past 50 or 60 years, which it looks like you were, then the county would have the record of a birth certificate with a time recorded on it. Not that we need that now. 3 to 4 or whatever it is fine.
What about Florida? Did they keep those records?
Certificate upstairs, actually.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
Does Florida keep those records?
So I don't even know if she'll know that.
I'd have to look. I know Indiana does. Every state's different. Most states, for $5 or $10, you can. There's a place online where you can go to and get a birth certificate, sent to you electronically these days.
You've got good Indiana knowledge. Is that just from like doing this long enough? You got that, or have you been to Indiana before? You a big fan?
Oh, I've been to India. I've been to every state in the country except for Alaska. I've driven in every state in the country except for Alaska. And
Indiana at the top, or
what's the worst?
Indiana from the top to the bottom.
Where would you rank it?
In what way?
Like
if we're talking about if we're talking about the northernmost state, I would probably rank it about 15th or 12th. If we're talking about what state was longest in the Union, it's probably I don't know, maybe 20th. Yeah. I don't know. How do you rank a state?
How nice
a place I would want to live, it would probably be about 40.
Hey,
Out of 40.
It's not
Out of-
50. Yeah. That's not-
Well, there is Florida and Texas and Mississippi and
Yeah.
yeah.
Florida's
there's-
rotten.
Hey, you don't
Raw
want to live
eggs.
in Mississippi? That place is rocks.
Yeah.
No, it's the worst.
Is it?
It's literally the worst state in the union, I believe, ranked, and I
It
think the
may
people
be.
there also
The
agree.
bottom line is that there are assholes in every state, even the cool ones, and there are cool people even in Florida or Texas.
Yeah, Sam lives in Florida. He's
Yeah.
one of the
I had
Bad
an
alright
example,
ones.
but yeah, he's there.
I thought you were gonna say Sam. I think knows an all right person or something, but no, you vouched for me. Awesome. I'm an all right guy from Florida, apparently.
It affects your pay. That's why
I know.
he's
By
only-
the way, my time of birth, it was 8 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah, well, when I hear
I
an
clocked
8 a.m.
in.
birth, when I hear 8 a.m., my
You're a
antenna
bitch.
go up
You're a
and go,
little
yeah,
bitch.
right. And someone obviously can be born at 8 a.m., but it tells me that the chances are it was between, 7:30 and 8:30, rounded off to 8 a.m. It's,
Yeah, it wasn't. That wasn't the exact.
His mom
there's
was
no
probably
way.
drunk anyway.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
most of our moms were not necessarily drunk, but they were typically on pretty good drugs.
Yeah, it's true.
And the thing is that for a really accurate chart reading, a difference of 2 or 3 or 5 minutes actually can make a difference. So
Really?
Because of how fast the cosmos move and everything.
No, that's how fast the Earth's horizon appears to move. I mean, did you ever watch a sunrise?
Yeah,
From
it's
the
quick.
time that it's dark to the
It's true.
time it's light, that's like 3 or 4 degrees out of the 360-degree circle. So everything shifts a bit, and it can, it won't
Since-
change things overwhelmingly, but it does make a difference between level of accuracy. I've over the years, I treat every birth time with a grain of salt. I don't believe it, and I look at it and kind of do adjustments in my head as I'm talking to the person, kind of moving it backward or forward a little bit. But the bottom line is that a competent astrologer can look at someone's natal, which just means birth, natal horoscope. The horoscope is the map from the latitude and longitude with time zone corrected, because the universe doesn't have time zones, obviously. And it's a map of where all the planets are from the spot on Earth that you were born. And from that map, there's a lot of information, as you'll see in a few minutes, that one can glean from that.
Now, how much does environment play a role in shifting someone's?
Oh,
Yeah, like he lived in the ghetto. Like
Yeah,
that-
like let's say like two people are born at the exact same time in the exact same city,
one of them gets
but
paid
they live
between
across
two
the street
pines.
from each other. Yeah, and then
Well,
but
first
one
of all-
person has
first
like an
of all-
abusive family or something.
Yeah,
they
but,
turn out similar.
it's a really good question. But in most cases, two people are not born at the same place in the same time, even a mile or two apart, or like I said before, 3 or 4 minutes can make a subtle difference. But obviously, context, what biologists would call, the epigenetics is you take a sick plant and put it in a healthy environment, it gets healthy. You put a healthy plant in an environment where it's deprived of food and water, it gets sick. And so, there's a lot of things that are different, but there are anecdotes of people born, very close in time and space. And there's a story of, I don't even remember what king of England it was, but a king of England that was born at the same day. I don't even know if it was the same time of day as someone else that looks on the surface like they had absolutely nothing in common, except they were both married 2 times on the same day. They had major illnesses at the same time in their life, and crazy things like that you wouldn't almost even notice unless you were trying to notice them. But it's a damn good question. And yes, obviously epigenetics or our environment is incredibly important
Just put a
as
$20 bill
to
up there.
how
What was
much
that?
of ourselves we end up realizing. I'm sorry, someone was saying something. Sorry.
No, Brian's just
Yeah,
interrupting
it's
for no reason.
Sam had a piece of paper. He hung it up on the wall. I wanted to know what that was.
Okay, you know what that was? I'm not
Yeah.
trying to detract from what he's saying, but he mentioned taking a healthy plant and putting it in a horrible environment. And my wife just recently potted me a beautiful plant, and I haven't watered it in like 2 weeks. And so when he said that, I wrote down, I was like, water that plant. And then I stuck it up on this little board up here so I wouldn't forget.
Right, or take it out of its misery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go in there and just fucking kick it out the window into the yard. It would probably be happier out there, to be honest, to be out of this house. But
for a while until winter happened.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you're in Florida.
I'm in Florida.
Yeah. Do you have like, are all your houseplants like Florida-ish plants, or do you get to try like new stuff because it's inside? Like, it's probably a dumb question, but like I have a cactus in my house. I'm like, what? Why do I have that? You know, like what do you guys have down there? What kind of house plant is
fiddle figs.
Oh, whatever. Just classic house plants. Okay.
Classic house plant.
I don't know why.
That's Abby's domain.
Extraordinary, but
I say, can you bring one of them green things down here? My room's depressing.
Yeah, it needs more oxygen.
Like, all right.
Yeah. And I'm up in Seattle. I just have blackberries and poison ivy.
Oh yeah. Oh, blackberries are great though, dude. I remember I used to love going in my yard and picking blackberries when I found them. And my mom would be like, "Get your fill, because I'm about to round up the shit out of those." Yeah. What does that say about me? Our therapist wasn't able to get much out of us.
You can eat crap out of
hoping you'll be able to fix us in some way.
You're a berry hog. That's what that says about you. Also, I do have to note, like, beyond the shirt, like, you have probably the most perfect look for an astrologist. Like, just
is it astrologer or astrologist?
Astrologer.
Well, astrologer is preferred by most people, although people say Facebook doesn't let you say you're an astrologer. It makes you be an astrologist. But it's like, are you a biologer or biologist? It depends on, I mean, the two words I think technically are the kind of the same thing. But but we typically say astrologer. Yeah,
one of those shirts.
Yeah, and this look is not, I'm actually a black woman. This is just all cosmetic surgery
just to help with the profession.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. Well, I hope I look exactly like you one day.
And speaking of smoking mirrors, I hate to smoke mirrors because you never can tell when they just kind of break apart and then get in your lungs.
And that's bad luck, breaking a mirror.
Yeah, that's 7 years.
Well, okay, so here's how much astrology is in our lives all the time, just as a quick aside. I mean, aside from the fact that if you tell someone that they have a sunny disposition, you know what they mean, or if someone's loony, or even if they're mercurial, or martial law comes from Mars, or I mean, our language has astrology in it completely, but the thing about astrology is that, as in geometry, tension occurs at 90-degree angles. So that, if you're a carpenter, 90 degrees is not stable. You have to triangulate it. You have to stress something. You have to build in something to make it stable. And in astrology, when two planets are 90 degrees, really, or 180 degrees, in other words, if they're square, or opposite or square, 90 degrees on the other side, these are the most dynamic points on a cycle. And so every planet goes through its own cycle. The one we know the most are either the cycle of the Earth around the sun, and the dynamic points are the squares, starting with the first moment of spring, which is the beginning not only of the true year, but also the beginning of the zodiac. And so you have the first day of spring, which is Aries, the first day of summer, which is Cancer, the first day of autumn, which is Libra, and the first day of Capricorn, the first day of winter, which is Capricorn. And those points are the points of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. So the dynamic points on any cycle are the 90-degree points. With the moon cycle, we know the new moon and the full moon. And before we had the calendars like we do, ancients, one of their primary units of measure was, because you take a cycle, like a moon cycle, you divide it in half to get that 90 and 90 is 180 degrees. And so we know the new moon and full moon, a primary unit of measure up until maybe 150 years ago, was a fortnight, which is 2 weeks, which is half of a moon cycle. And a half of that cycle, the 90 degrees of that, is a week. So basically, the entire calendar, someone says, "Oh, do you believe in astrology?" I go, "Well, yeah, and so do you." They go, oh, no, I don't. I go, so you don't use a calendar. How cool is that? How do you get by? Because the calendar is basically astrological. We take a moon cycle and divide it in half and divide it in half again to get the 90-degree angle. I'm going somewhere here with all of this. And that 90-degree angle is basically the basic timekeeping thing that we do of a week. Saturn is about a 28, 29-year cycle. And Saturn is the planet of serious shit. Saturn is the planet that's associated with authority and responsibility and karma and hard work. And Saturn is like your dad that's, dragging you out on the carpet for something that you didn't do, or the principal or the cop that stops you for speeding. Saturn is that kind of authority. It's the rule. It's the law. When Saturn reaches its 90-degree point in anyone's chart in their life in general, that's often when substantial things change. And the idea of breaking a mirror and having 7 years bad luck, or even going back to the Bible, the idea of Joseph's dream of 7 years of feast and 7 years of famine, this is based upon the quarter of a Saturn cycle, because typically, if we do something in our life that's really bad shit, it takes really 7 years for it to work fully out of our system. And so that idea of 7 years, breaking a mirror and having 7 years bad luck actually is astrological.
That's sweet. Huh. Well, and what a good gotcha with the calendar too for people. That's good. That's
well,
good.
Even a day, an hour, the division by 12 is really, really convenient. And it's convenient enough that not only are there 12 signs in the zodiac, there are 12 months in the year. There were 12 tribes in the children of the 12 tribes of Israel. Jesus had 12 disciples. There are 12 hours of daylight, or 12 and 12, of day and night. And, and it's basically, it's all astrological.
I heard that there was a 13th sign that got discovered or something. That's just a crock of shit.
Yeah, it's a crock of shit. It's actually there is a piece of information behind it that's true, but like many things, see, astrology has this really special place in our culture. It's the only thing that science and religion both agree is a wart on humanity and needs to be just cut out. Because both science and religion, for very different reasons, neither one of them can deal with astrology. Science can't deal with astrology because the entire sense, according to David Hume, one of the founder of what we call the experimental method, it's built upon repeatability. Science says you got to be able to repeat the experiment, do it again. And if you can't do it again, it's not scientific if it only happens once. And astrologically, nothing happens twice, because even though on your birthday, the sun appears to be back in the same place, everything else is different. And so science can't deal with the fact that if you do an experiment at 3 a.m. on March 3rd, and then do the same experiment on September 9th at 4 p.m, that time actually can have an important impact on the experiment. That's another rabbit hole. We're not going to go down it right now. We can come back to it if you want. I mean, there's experimental validity to that. And then, of course, there's nothing anywhere in either Jewish or Christian liturgy that says astrology doesn't work. It just says don't do it. And the reason why the Catholic, look, until the late 1400s, early 1500s, every pope was either an astrologer or had a staff of them. And in fact, the most important astrological techniques we moderners used are called Campanus, Porphyry, Regiomontanus, Marinus. They're all named after the monks who developed those techniques. And yet, for political reasons, the church says you can't go to the guy down on the edge of town. You got to go to the priest. It was strictly a political thing, and still is why the church can't allow for someone to have direct communication with the divinity. As above, so below. You need to go to the priest as an intermediary.
It cuts out a lot of the money. I think.
Yeah.
It's not a political move. They got to keep the lights on in them big churches. Those things are
absolutely
cold.
Yeah, they're struggling.
Huge.
I've also heard tell that astrologers can figure out penis size based off of.
Oh, you don't need astrology for that. Mine's bigger than yours.
Oh, shit. Well, I was hoping.
You just got fucking face.
I did. That guy just used fucking verbally uppercutted me.
If my ex-girlfriend explained it like you, I'd be a lot more inclined currently. It's like, well, it's like the sun.
But the thing about the 13th sign, though, is this. There is a constellation. You see, the planets go around on the Earth goes around the sun, and pretty much all the planets go around on that same plane. You think of it as a cosmic frisbee. They go a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but pretty much everything is in the same plane. That plane is called the ecliptic, sometimes referred to as the celestial highway. From Earth's point of view, we look at the sky and we take star groupings and we turn them into pictures. And there are 12 basic pictures along the ecliptic. Those are the Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, so on. And there are 12 of them. Now, there is a 13th constellation called Ophiuchus, which kind of comes down through the ecliptic. And this is the ignorant people's statement of saying, oh, no, now we know there are 13 signs. The problem is that there aren't really 12 signs in the zodiac up there, because we made them all up. There's 12 signs in here. And astrology is a mathematical system that divides circles or cycles into 12. Saying there's a 13th sign in a system that is dividing the universe into 12 is like saying, oh, no, a square really has a fifth side. It can't by definition. Now, there is a branch of astrology that says we don't care about the mathematics. Everything is done based upon stars. You see, one of the other things that modern science astronomers will say, astrologers don't know what they're talking about because the signs have shifted. Yeah, astrologers know that. They knew that 2,500 years ago. And that's based upon the backward wobble of Earth called the precession of the equinox, another rabbit hole that we're not going down. But the point is that modern astrology is not constellational. It's not based upon the stars. It's based upon the seasons. The 0 degrees of Aries, the first sign of the zodiac Aries, is always set at the first moment of spring, which is a astronomically measurable moment. It's the vernal equinox, the equal day and night on the planet. And so to say there's a 13th sign, basically, or to say that astrologers don't know what they're talking about because the signs aren't in the right places anymore, just tells me that the person who's saying that is ignorant of what modern astrology is.
Do you think they wanted to add the 13th sign just because, or do you think that was like big astrology trying to sell more maps? More gizmos and gear.
No, I think it's strictly an ignorant thing, and the ignorance comes from the scientific method and or the religious perception that believes that what they're looking at is the way it is, and if it doesn't fit into it that way, it can't possibly be. So it's just like an a priori, this is all bullshit because it just can't be. I mean, the great scientist Lavoisier, who invented or who discovered oxygen, he was the first president of the French Academy of Sciences back in the late 1700s. He got his head chopped off in the French Revolution. But one of his first acts when he became the president of the first president of the French Academy of Scientists, because there was this whole controversy then about what we moderners would call meteorites. And Lavoisier said this statement on record. He's saying this is a stupid argument because there can't be stones that fall from the sky because there are no stones in the sky to fall. You know, it's like what's outside of our sense of perception, we just automatically judge as either stupid or ignorant or it's impossible. Anyhow. Yeah. So that's my opening volley. How are we doing, guys?
You're a lot more words bigger, is smarter than I thought you were going to be. Are you like an educated guy? Do you got like a PhD in astrology? Or?
Yeah, sure. I printed it on Photoshop. Yeah,
I saw you have like a Carl Sagan book back there, so you have to be pretty smart.
You can see that from that distance.
I could read it from all over here.
I'm impressed.
No, I watched one of your videos earlier.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, so one of my great disappointments in life is that as a young astrologer, right around the time that Cosmos came out, which I watched week by week and thought it was amazing. One of my great disappointments was at that time, I wanted to go on network because there were only, if you watch TV, there was only 3 networks. That was it. No one even had PBS at that time. And I wanted to be on network TV on a 1-hour debate, me, Carl Sagan, on astrology, because he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about either. He was a smart guy and he was a cool guy and he did a lot of really, really good stuff. But and he had the sense at one point in time, I think it was 1976, 186 scientists took out this full-page ad in Science magazine, basically warning the public about the charlatans who practice astrology. And it was just like a really big deal because that was like becoming a thing then even. And Carl Sagan, even though in Cosmos he kind of brushes aside and makes fun of astrology, he was the only well-known scientist who would not sign that document because he said science is based upon knowledge and I really don't know enough to say that it doesn't work. He would not sign it. Cool. So he got my respect there, but poor Carl Sagan, I mean, he was like a total pothead. He was like a total, like he was into it and he wanted so badly, even in the movie Contact, he wanted so badly to believe that there was other, civilizations and alien, but his scientifically trained mind was like a trap. And I know people who knew him and said that that's what killed him. That's what his cancer was all about, was he was so frustrated he couldn't let go and just be there. I don't know, maybe, not our subject for conversation, but you brought up Carl Sagan.
No, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it sucks that you never got that opportunity to debate him and stuff. But
I'll debate his AI.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can settle for coming on the Forehead Fables podcast. That's a close second.
That's like 3 Carl Sagans. Come on.
Big win.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Win.
We've got no debates here though.
So Sam, do we want to look at your chart?
Yeah, dude, let's do it. I'm excited.
All right. So this is a software program that I use, which is one of many programs that an astrologer would use. That might be too big, but it's probably more like that is good. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to put in here new chart data, and we're going to type in. I don't know how small this is. If you can see this at all,
it's like a cheat code.
Okay, well, I can't make it any bigger, but when we get to the chart.
First and last name. I'll give him his.
No, we'll just go General Sam.
Oh, the name doesn't matter? Okay.
No. The only thing that matters is birth date, time, and place. Florida. Oh, look at that. I got it. So what this program just did is this went into its incredibly large database, and it has every post office in the United States. It has every little town in Siberia and in Indonesia, and it basically converts the city and the state or country into the latitude and longitude and then corrects for the time. This knows that there was daylight time. So this is now Eastern Daylight Time because, again, as I said earlier, the universe, the cosmos, doesn't have time zone, so it needs to convert to like a universal time. So I'm clicking on OK here, and now I come up with what this is the primary tool that we astrologers would use.
Wow, that all looks good to me. That looks like one healthy boy.
Well,
that line
it
right
tells
there
me
says
a few
you're stupid.
things.
I don't know. I don't know if you saw that.
Which is the
tells me a
giant
few
penis
things.
line?
It tells me a few things right off the bat. Number one, and I'm going to use my cursor here. That symbol, the colored things around the outer part of the wheel are the planets, and a couple of things that are additional things that we astrologers use. But the yellow circle is the sun, which from Earth's point of view, when you were born, was at 12 degrees of the sign of Leo and 36 minutes. A minute in astrology is like there's 60 minutes in a degree, like there's 60 minutes in an hour. So this is about 12 and a half degrees into the 30 degrees of the sign of Leo. And Leo, if you count from Aries as being the beginning of the zodiac, it's 30, 60, 90, 120, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and then Leo. So this is about 120 plus 12 and a half degrees. This tells me that when you were born, the sun was about 132 and a half degrees after the vernal equinox. I'm just giving you, I'm trying to make this real so that it's just not a lot of, mumbo jumbo bullshit. It's based on real math.
Okay.
This thing doesn't show any distances. In fact, the moon doesn't look any farther away than the sun from you in the center, because all this is showing is the cyclicity, is the cycles of all the planets. Okay. And when you were born, even though you're a Leo, the sun was in Leo when you were born, your moon was in Gemini. And that your moon was in Gemini tells me something about not who you are. You are a Leo. You're a lion. The lions roar. They're dramatic. They're on stage. They're lively. They're animated. Lions are the king of the jungle. But when you were born, the moon was in Gemini, and Gemini is a very different sign. In fact, what Gemini is about, it's about data. It's about information. It's about sending and receiving information. And in astrology, every planet has a connection with a sign. Every sign has a connection with a planet. The planet that's connected with Gemini is Mercury. And Mercury is actually connected with two different signs. And here's the thing that's important about your chart is that your moon was in Gemini, and Mercury, Venus, and Mars are all clustered together in the sign of Virgo. And Virgo is Mercury's other sign. So this immediately tells me that let me get rid of this again, get that out of the way. Sorry. What this means is that without even knowing anything else about you, I know that you're, I want to say smarter, you're than the average Leo, meaning that there's a part of you that's more interested in talking and listening, in interacting, in reading and writing, in information, in movement, in high frequency, going back and forth, whatever the hell that means to you.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What were you saying? I'm kidding. I'm hooked, dude. You got me hooked. All right.
Yeah. Well, how smart is he? This guy dropped out. All right.
Yeah.
This guy.
I was thinking about when he started bringing up listening. I was thinking about getting up and walking away.
But here's your internal dilemma, or a couple of them.
Your wires get crossed.
What? Say again?
I said where your wires get crossed.
Well, is that Gemini? I call it the information slut. It's like, I don't give a shit what you're saying or what the information is. I want to know about it so I can connect it to everything else I know. Geminis are noisy. They're like static electricity. If you think of the Geminis in reality, Bob Dylan is a classic Gemini. He would do 2 news conferences the same day and tell totally different stories, because Geminis are the con artists of the zodiac. Donald Trump is a Gemini. Happy birthday,
I agree
Donald,
with that,
today.
actually.
Oh, yeah.
There's a sense of Gemini being able to be really clever, not necessarily right, not necessarily deep, but really clever. The one-liners. Paul McCartney is another Gemini. His songs are not deep, but they're clever. Now, here's the thing: is that your moon in Gemini.
I'm sorry, Poob's a Gemini, and he's over there sweating, dude.
Well, that's okay. We'll get there in a minute. But the moon in Gemini, these lines in the middle are basically the mathematical connections based upon divisions of a circle. So that the red lines are divisions by 2, that's the opposition, the 180 degree that I talked about earlier. And the other red lines are the squares. Those are 90 degrees. Your moon is 90 degrees to Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and they're in Virgo. Virgo is also an information sign, but Virgo is practical. Virgo doesn't want to know information unless it's useful. Gemini wants to know information, doesn't give a shit whether it's useful. It doesn't even care whether it's true. It just likes data. And so your internal dilemma is the noise versus the how do I sift out of that what's real, what's true, what's useful, what's exacting. Because all these planets in Virgo tell me that there's a part of you, even though you put on this show of being, kind of like, here I am, and your mind is racing around in a lot of different directions being clever, there's a part of you that has a different agenda, and that's to sift through the noise and to get to the place that is accurate, that is true, that has value, and basically that limits in some way how you do and what you do. And yet you see this thick blue line that's connecting all those Virgo planets down here with this other group of planets.
I was going to ask you about that.
Well, this is these purple planets are the slow moving outer planets, and they're more generational. Everyone born in 1990, 91, 92 has slow moving Uranus pretty much lined up with slower moving Neptune. And this tells me that there's a part of you that is the ongoing radical, blow it all up out of the box. I want to know what's true so I can in some way justify, how different or weird or eclectic I am. And yet at the same time, there's a part of you with that Neptune so close that tells me that whether you use the word spiritual or creative or imaginary or fantasy oriented, that's a part of who you are too, because that Neptune is part of that piece. And so in some ways, even the eclectic, radical, kind of breakthrough any constraints, don't pay attention to authority part of you, and the part of you that is about fantasy and dreams and illusion and the magic of imagination, all of that still has to get sifted through. Yeah, but how does it work? Does it work in the real world or not? Another piece here is, I think also that I would look at your chart and I would also see in some ways this dilemma with that part of you that wants to bust authority and the part of you that wants to still be perceived as likable and clever. And anyhow, so that's basically a few of the things that I see when I first look at the chart.
But who likes authority? Is there some sort of, have you ever looked at someone's chart and it says like this guy likes sucking authority's dick? Like there's nobody that likes authority.
Actually, two things. One is absolutely yes, and more often it's I am authority and I want everyone to suck my dick.
Well, of course, that's a natural. I mean, that's every sign.
Well, see, one of the weird things about astrology is that that I've observed is that whatever we are on some very deep level, we assume that's the way everyone is. No, we know people who, even from our childhood, when an adult or a teacher or a principal said something, they didn't question. They just said, yep, and they did it. And there are people who go through life needing authority and then projecting that based upon not what they know, but what they've been told. And that's certainly not you.
I thought those kids just got hit a lot at home or something.
Boss. Yeah. Sam, you hate authority.
Yeah, I do. I do kind of have a disdain of authority.
I hate chores.
Parental figures, chores, taking out the garbage.
Bosses. Yeah, well, and there's
the IRS.
IRS, yeah.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that there's a part of you that Gemini moon really firmly believes that it can continually do that end run around authority without having to acquiesce to it. And yet there's a part of you that still loves taking the time that it takes to bust authority, to nuke it, to blow it up. And I don't know anything about you in your personal life, and I don't want to know too much, quite frankly. but I would imagine that there is a very strong imagination, creativity, creative side that still in some way has to be practical. You have to be able to use it, and whether you call it spiritual or not, it's a part of you that knows that there's more there than meets the eye, and that part of you, I think, sometimes makes you a little crazy because it doesn't fit well with the part of you that just wants to live your life. Food for thought.
This is eye-opening.
I'm learning about you, dude.
Yeah, I'm learning a little bit. I feel like, I don't know. This chart looks like I was one step away from being the Unabomber Part 2 or something.
With all the connections.
Yeah, good thing I had my daughters. They grounded me.
Well, and another thing about looking at your chart, I mean, and sometimes saying these things after someone, sometimes I teach my students that sometimes a good astrologer doesn't see something in the chart. It sees something in the chart after they've been told what it is, but they can see where it comes from. And I would suggest, see, these little sectors, each of these areas of the chart have to do with a different area of our life. And this area here, which is these sectors are called houses. If you've ever heard that word in astrology, seventh house or whatever, This house has to do with children. And in that area of your chart, there's, for me, in some ways, this is part of how do I want to say this? It's like one of the reasons you're here, one of the lessons, one of the things that you're growing and learning through is this whole area of self-expression, which is not only expressing yourself creatively, but procreatively, meaning it's the kids we have. And the two most important planets there are the planet Uranus, which is the planet of blow it up, of radical rebellion, genius, and Neptune, the planet of magic, his imagination, and spirituality, if you will. And in a way, your kids in your life represent in some way an opening of those things. That it may have been a real surprise, because Uranus is always surprising as to how deep and powerful it would change you as a person. So, these are just all food for thought. But where the magic of astrology begins to come in is when we look at the timing, and we look at a planet like Saturn. Here's where it was when you were born. But if we unfold Saturn in time, Saturn takes about 29 years to go all the way around the zodiac once from Earth's point of view. So roughly, 91, 01, 11, 21, roughly in 2021, Saturn was back where it was when you were born. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change our view of your chart. And it's still, this is the same chart. There's no lines in the middle. There's that Saturn. There's the Leo sun. There's the Gemini moon at the top of your chart, which is kind of what we do in our career. It's who we are in the outer world. But notice here that Saturn has gone all the way around once, and now it's moved past where it was. So what I want to do is I want to animate this chart and move it backward a month at a time. Now, we're just watching that Saturn. We're just watching this. All the other stuff temporarily is noise.
Okay.
And we're seeing that Saturn right around there. Saturn, and all the planets from Earth's point of view go forward, backward, forward, backward. They don't really. It's because the Earth is going around separately, and so astronomers call that retrograde motion. It's just an optical illusion. But you can see here that in April of 2020, Saturn moved from the sign of Capricorn. There we are right there. This is Saturn in your chart, and this is Saturn in the real world in March of 2020. In April, Saturn moved into Aquarius, and then it almost, but didn't quite reach the same degree, 2 degrees of Aquarius where your Saturn is, and then it turned retrograde, and it backed up into Capricorn again, and then whoops, I went too far too fast, and then it lined up with Saturn in your chart in January of 2021. So what this tells me is that period of time from when it almost reached it all the way up through the beginning of 2021 for you in some ways was a real period of having to grow up, take responsibility, and eliminate some things in your life to make choices that led to other things.
Yeah, well,
Hey, when
was my kid born?
Yeah, when was your kid born?
When was the second one born? That might have been around that time. Yeah.
You don't know your kid's birthday?
Hold on. I'm thinking, dude. Cut me some fucking. I've been drinking a little bit. I've been thinking about the fucking cosmos in here, dude.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about grounded
drink
things.
Some more. You know what's your kid's birthday? What?
January 11th of. She is 2 now. Yeah, so that would be 2021.
2021.
Yeah, 2021. Yeah.
So what was the exact date?
January 11th.
All right. So can you just so you know, I'm not making this shit up.
Yeah.
Saturn on January 11th was at 2 degrees and 55 minutes. That's basically almost 3 degrees of Aquarius.
Okay.
When you were born, Saturn was at 2 degrees 48 minutes. That's almost 3 degrees. They were in the same degree. Out of 360 degrees, Saturn had come all the way around, and that was lined up on the day of the birth of your child. This is not uncommon, incidentally, but it's also a special bond that's probably very different than the bond that you have with your other child. Not that one is better or worse.
Me and the same. Okay, my firstborn Madeline. The firstborn is so much like my wife, and this Olivia.
And what's Madeline's birth date?
July 2nd of 2018.
How old is she?
She's 5.
She's gonna be.
Yeah, she's gonna be 5. Yeah, no,
gonna be 5 or gonna be 6.
I think gonna be 5.
Jeez, dude.
I don't know.
Right? Oh my god,
dude! I just love the shit out of them. All right, I don't know all the little particulars. I don't know.
So, so if she's going to be 5, that would mean 2018. 2018.
Yeah.
Let's imagine that's the case.
No, that is the case. Yeah.
And let's go there. And there are things that show, but I mean, there's certainly things that show. One of the things that shows, incidentally, is a much faster moving planet, Venus, was lined up with Jupiter in your chart on the day. Now, Venus moves quickly enough that it'll only stay there, for a day or two, and then it'll be gone. And Venus was within a quarter of a degree on that day, because this is 21:48 minutes, almost 22 degrees. And Venus Jupiter is like, it's magnificent. This is bigger, better, more beautiful, pleasure. I mean, it certainly is love. But it's different than the Saturn connection, which has to do with a deeper level connection that's less about love and more about genetic continuity. And it's not just a boy-girl thing, but it's interesting that
she has my big head. Her head is fucking big as shit, just like mine. The other one has a little tiny head like her mom, a little pinhead. So it lines up. Awesome.
Also, the sun in the sky when she was born, she's a Cancer, and he's an Aquarian. Is that right? Yeah. No, he's a Capricorn. What day did he say he was born?
They're both girls.
I'm sorry. Yeah. No, but the other one, the younger one.
Oh, January 11th.
11th.
11th. Yeah. So yeah, so she's a Capricorn. So theoretically, the Cancer would be more indrawn, more intuitive, more emotional, but maybe even quieter. Although I'm not looking at the chart, in its entirety, than the Capricorn. That's more about external mastery rather than creating safe space for internal stuff. I would imagine that the older one, as they grow older, will be moodier, and the younger one will be more like fix it in the outer world rather than in the inner world. Regardless, what I want to do also, just before we leave this and harass either Poob or Bryan, is I want to take a look at Saturn in the sky, and I want to run it forward. Let's not a day at a time. I want to go back to a month at a time, and I want to bring it back to where it is now. And then I want to go back, and what I'm looking for is, when was Saturn in the sky exactly opposite the sun in your chart? Do you see what I'm doing here? It's just geometry.
Yeah.
And so I back this up, and that would have been right around December, January, right in that same period of time. No, 2022. So your daughter's now 1 year old is what we're looking at here.
Mm-hmm.
And yet around her first birthday, there's something in your life that has, in a way, reached fruition that is that requires you to make decisions about whether you're going to keep doing something or not do it. And I would imagine that in some way we could take this back and run this back 15 years really quickly to, there we go. We're looking roughly the summer of 2006. So you're 14 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so right around that period of time, I would imagine, with Saturn in the sky lined up with your sun, that there may have been something that occurred that was a shift in external reality that caused you to go inward and get real. It might not have been an easy time. It might have been something like a parental move or a change on the home front or a new school or just, I don't know, something. And sometimes we remember these things, sometimes we don't, but I don't know if anything comes to mind there. Summer of being 14 years old, or 13 to 14. 13 to 14.
When did I meet my wife? I think it was around 2006, to be honest.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Well, food for thought. But
Yeah.
now I want to take this back even further, and let's go back to a year at a time. This will take forever, and a month at a time. Let's just go back here real quickly, because even younger. Shit, I'm sorry.
All good.
Okay, there we go. So. Around age 10, actually, yeah, 91 to 2001. So it's like age 10, between 10 and 11, Saturn reaches the top of your chart and lines up with your moon. And again, I think this is not age dependent, but this is a difficult time, and it's a time of some sort of change. Again, home front, some sort of loss.
Parents got divorced.
Okay,
Really?
That's it.
Oh,
Goodbye.
man. Oh, man. Oh, face part two.
Yeah.
You got to be a believer after parents divorce.
All right, so
If
one of the great
had this technology.
one of the great one of the great here. Let's just come back to here for a second. One of the great psychologists of the 20th century, a guy named James Hillman, who is kind of considered to be the torchbearer of what was Carl Jung, Jungian psychology before that. He used to say, I don't believe in astrology, but then again, I don't believe in a hammer either. If it's the right tool, I'll use it. Astrology doesn't require belief any more than chemistry does. You either know about it or you don't.
Yeah.
It's just a data set. It's just information. That's all it is. And what you do with it or don't do with it has nothing to do with whether or not it may be useful. Again, there are, what's that saying? A hammer sees a world full of nails. So as an astrologer, I see things through this lens, but it doesn't mean you need to see things through this lens for them to happen in however it is they unfold, in tune with the as above, so below. The inside and the outside are the same. That's it.
Bravo, by the way. That was awesome. That
was really cool. I'm very excited to see Bryan.
I am also excited to see Bryan because let me tell you something, dude. Bryan,
go ahead.
I've known him for like a decade, and we actually recently had an episode where we tried doing a deep dive. We asked him personal questions like, Bryan, how do you feel about this? And then he would just stonewall us. Like, this guy doesn't tell us shit.
All right. Well, I'm not going to ask him to tell me anything, but you'll know.
Find his core.
Yeah. No, you don't have to ask him. It's right there in the stars, dude. You're going to figure this out.
He's probably going to give us a wrong birth date, but I want to do Poob. Can we do
You're fired
Poob on
if you
the way?
give him a wrong.
Hey, guys. Wow, what a podcast, right? Now it's time for the ad read. But what do you say we spice this up a bit? Am I right? Whoa, what the heck? Today's podcast is brought to you by AG1. I gave AG1 a try because I wanted to improve my gut health. I take AG1 in the morning before working out, and it makes me feel ready to go. AG1 was designed with ease in mind so you can live healthier and better without having to do a lot, which is good for me because I'm incapable of doing a lot. It's delivered at the same time every month, makes it very easy to form a habit. You take it every day when you wake up. It's easy. It's an easy habit to form, okay? And it improves mild memory problems associated with aging. It helps me from retelling the same stories on the podcast. Am I right? If you're looking for an easier way to take supplements, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/forehead. That's athleticgreens.com/forehead. Check it out.
Honestly, very, very cool, insightful stuff. You got me hooked, and now I'm gonna create a tighter bond with my second child, and the first one I'll ignore or whatever because I can tell. I can tell she's got nothing to do with me or not like at all. No, but that is a weird parallel. I can tell that personality-wise, the second one very much is like a mirror of me, whereas the firstborn, it takes after her mom a lot more. Very interesting stuff. So do you do this? You do the YouTube stuff full time?
Well, I do astrology, full time. I mean, I have a life, and I have, I have friends, and I travel a lot, and I do a lot of photography, and I read a lot, and I write, and I play music, and so I have a life.
Yeah, you seem like a Renaissance man. You got a lot going on over there.
But astrology is my single source of income. And I see clients, although I have a waiting list that will take me longer than the amount of years I have left to get through it. I have about, so here's something to think about. Right now, if you sent me an email and said you wanted a consultation, right now they go for $250, and it would probably take about 4 years for me to get to your chart because I have about 1,200 people on an active waiting list. So that's what you just got for free.
Yeah,
free, because I don't mind doing that at all. But the other thing though is that I do some client work, but I make most of my living through Patreon and doing YouTube videos. Not the ones that you've seen for free, but I have a whole line of private, what they call unlisted YouTube videos. That if you're a subscriber, I have about 1,200 subscribers that pay anywhere from $10 to $100 a month, depending upon what services they're getting. And on top of that, I offer some courses online through Astrology Hub, and I've taught thousands of students. And so that's also a source of income. And I travel and teach. I mean, in the year before COVID, I taught in the year before COVID, I taught in India, Indonesia, Portugal, Turkey, Serbia, England, Costa Rica, and around the United States.
Oh, damn, you're traveling.
And this year, I mean, I taught already this year in Portugal, out on the Azores Islands.
Azores, what island?
On the Big Island at Ponta Delgado. And I'd never. Have you been there? But here's the thing: is that so I went there to lecture at the Portuguese Astrology Society's annual conference, and the conference was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I stayed an extra week just to explore and chill and be there. And so that's often what I do. In December, actually, I'm leaving next week. I'm leaving for the East Coast to lecture at the Omega Institute north of New York. And I'll be up in the Northeast for a whole month visiting friends and relatives and whatever. And then in December, I'm leading a 10-day retreat workshop in Goa, India, where I've taught before, a very magical place in India. And I'm staying there. I'm going on December 1st. I'm coming home on January 15th. I'm only working there 10 days. But while I'm there, I'll still do my online Patreon classes and teaching and all that stuff. So it doesn't matter where I am, as long as I have a good computer and a decent internet connection. It's, have internet will travel.
What the fuck, dude?
Yeah,
I want to be an astrologer. This guy's globetrotting around.
Way cooler than us.
Yeah.
And I still can't stop thinking of that burn you had on Sam about the
oh yeah, that was my favorite one. He had a big thing about the penis thing, and you're just like, my dick's bigger. Shut up. And kept going.
It was
never answered me because Google says that you can see. You can see penis size in astrology. That's what Google says. But
here's the thing.
I did. I knew.
So here's the thing. The truth of the matter is that Scorpios have the biggest penises, and Leos say they do.
Oh yeah.
I believe
I
it.
lie a lot. Yeah.
Small. Sam.
I say all the time.
If you lie a lot, it has nothing to do with being a Leo. It has specifically to do with the Gemini moon. And when I say lying, Gemini energy will and which one of you is the Gemini?
Crafty snake.
That's
snake,
Poob,
yeah.
3000's a Gemini.
Yeah, it's the ability to tune reality like an AM radio. And so it's not lying, it's just listening to a different station.
Yeah, it's like being Doctor Strange. It's like, shaping reality.
All right, are we back? Are we going to share screen?
Let's go for it.
Let's do it. Who are you going to break
Bryan
into first?
Let's do Poob first and say.
Oh, we'll leave Bryan, for the grand, finally finding out Bryan.
I would love him to open up Bryan's chart and his eyes melt out of his skull. I've never seen them align like this.
Indiana Jones. It makes like a perfect pentagram or something. Yeah, Stolt, do your job. Protect me.
Please.
Whoa, this makes it like a Z for Zorro, almost.
I think that's what it says.
I'm making my own reality. Or it almost looks like, Sam, it almost looks like the cool S we do.
It's actually Z for xenophobic.
Oh, shit.
That would explain some stuff. That lines up. Yeah, the private calls we have.
Ask him about Rust. All right, Rust days. All right.
The coding language? Okay.
So here's an intriguing thing. And you guys can tell I'm doing this on the fly. I've never met any of you. I don't know anything about you guys. But the first thing I notice is that Sam is a Leo with a Gemini moon. Poob is a Gemini with a Leo moon.
I knew that, actually.
Brofist.
Whoa.
We're the inverse. We're yin and yang.
Yep. Now here's the thing. Carl Jung, who is known as one of the great psychologists greatest psychologists who ever lived, actually was an astrologer and contributed a whole lot to the body of astrology. Never played that really loudly in his life, just because of the negativity toward astrology. He wrote about it some. He wrote about it actually a lot. But one of the things that Jung noted throughout his years of practice was that the most successful relationships, and he was here talking about marriage, but that's just because those are the relationships that he would have as clients. He noted that when one person's sun was in the same sign as another person's moon, there was just kind of some natural connection, recognition, because in a way the sun is the light that we shine. It's who we are. And the moon is the light that we reflect. And so in a way, what this would suggest to me that in some way, the Leo, I'm the center of attention, Leo sun that Sam is, that Poob reflects that. On the other hand, Poob is the Gemini sun, but if you look at this Gemini sun, it has the planet Mars right next to it. So I would say that you're a Gemini sun on steroids, and we're going to get back to that in just a moment.
Jesus Christ, don't tell girls that. I'm on a date.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
Don't tell any women that. Normally there's like a...
okay, I mean metaphysical steroids.
Oh, okay.
No, what I mean is that Mars is the feisty, fiery, martial, energetic, assertive, aggressive, directive planet. And you were born with Mars lined up pretty close to the sun in Gemini, which in some ways would make you more, feisty than a typical Gemini. The energy is more, there's an anger behind,
it's like a serial killer or something.
Yeah. Or even serial, or maybe even parallel. We don't know. We could do several at once. Interestingly enough, though, when you were born, Mercury, the planet of communication, that's Gemini's key planet, is hanging back at the very, very last degree of Taurus. If you were born a day later, Poob, you would have been born with Mercury in Gemini, which would have made you a whole lot more talkative than you are. And the Mercury in Taurus,
that's horrifying.
Yeah, that's horrific. Because he won't shut up right now.
The Mercury in Taurus, in some ways, is a part of you that would lead me to believe that you don't learn quite as fast as it seems like you do. But when you learn something, you learn it more solidly and more and deeper than someone might judge.
Okay.
You act like you're smart, but you ain't.
You're not.
The penis part of it.
He said my penis is small, but he said you're dumb as shit.
No, I didn't.
No, I
didn't.
I can appreciate. I can appreciate.
Back me up.
I can appreciate your interpretation of this, but that's not what I said. Yeah. What I said is that
I'm just busting balls. I'm busting.
I can take it. I don't have a problem with that. But what I said is that Poob learns things a lot deeper and a lot more solidly than sometimes it might appear as he's running around in circles, so to speak. Now, here's the other thing. You see this big red line that connects the Mars and the sun?
Yeah.
Down here to Pluto. All right, so Pluto is the planet of if you look at it if you looked at it online, it would say Pluto is the planet of death and transformation and power. It's not death as we know it, like the end of the road. It's death like the beginning of transformation. It's like death, like a caterpillar dies in order to become a butterfly. It doesn't die. Something happens that has to do with the power of transformation.
Talk about this on the
and
phone
all
earlier,
I can say is that looking at Poob's chart, I would much rather have Poob be a friend than an enemy, because there's a part of Poob, I believe, that when he gets pushed to that place that's probably just as uncomfortable for him as it is for this person that pushes him too far, it's not pleasant. because it stirs up this powerful, intense energy that's deep, that probably goes back to shit from your childhood. That's about whether it's a controlling parent or who the hell knows what, but there's something here that's pissed you off enough that you hold on to this deep rage, but instead of expressing it as rage, you express it as being clever, as being likable, as being
read me like a book.
Yeah. I've always
the other
seen
thing,
rage
the other thing
boiling
that I
beneath the
see in your
surface.
chart
It
that's
hides.
really important. I'm sorry. Go ahead and say. I'm too busy interrupting. you.
No, I'm interrupting you. You are doing an excellent job presenting me as this vengeful, clever, this man that thinks he's cleverer than he is. But I'm very interested in this. I think this next one's going to be my big come up.
Well, two things. Number one, if Sam thinks he can lie well, you can outlie him. You can dance circles around him.
I don't lie that well.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, he's pretty bad at it.
But the other
Ask
thing
his
about your
wife.
chart. Say that again.
It's just like not clever. Like he's not good at sex with his wife. I don't know. Okay,
So, so do you remember that thing about Sam that you said about authority and that everybody hates authority?
No, don't give me a bootlicker, dude. Come on.
No,
He loves authority, doesn't he?
No, I'm not saying he loves authority, but I don't think his issue is that hateful.
He needs it.
Well, there's something. In some ways, Poob gets to be the radical without necessarily taking down authority. There's something about how he works that he can be the most radical, the most rebellious, and I don't want to say he doesn't ever get into trouble for it, but somehow he can he whether it's lying or outright or deceiving or being clever, he can dance his way around that edge, and he in some way can be the person who looks like he's the person who's respecting authority when in fact he's taking it down at that same time.
He's like raging with the machine.
Rage with the machine.
Little fox. Yeah.
One other thing that I think is very significant, and that is that when you were born, the planet Venus, which is the planet of love and nice things and pleasure, and Venus is at home in its own sign in Taurus, which is nice. However, Venus was also very close to Saturn, and so it's almost like your entire life is about breaking away from the heavy restraints that you probably got from either family or religion or whatever.
Do you see some parallels between what he's talking about in our conversation literally today?
I'm seeing multiple. I'm
telling you, this guy's a goddamn wizard, all right?
Go on.
Go on, sir.
So some astrologers might say, looking at this chart, here's a person who can't get laid. No, I didn't mean that.
He's spitting facts all day. Carry
No,
on.
hold on. But seriously, there's something here about as lighthearted as you are and as passionate and powerful as you can be. There's something about you that doesn't take love as lightly as it might look like, and therefore there's something about you that there's a bit of illusion wrapped up in the idea of romanticism, and yet it can be delayed because it's like, as much as you are the master of being clever in the moment, there's also a part of you that is, whether it's fearful of emotional entanglement or whether it's simply a typical astrologer would say this is a sign of love delayed. It's the person who gets theirs, but it's cooler and it's later in life because they're not necessarily willing to just bite into something for the pleasure of the moment. Not that there can't ever be that. I'm not saying that, because I think in your chart, you see this blue line connecting Saturn. That's dad. That's the heavyweight. That's the authority. That's responsibility. That's discipline. It's connecting that with the moon. That's the show that you put on. And even though your moon is in Leo and it feels like you can put on that show or reflect Sam's show, there's a part of you that sometimes would rather choose to burn cooler for the better act than just to burn hot and then have it be over.
I'm very selective, when it comes to love. I got a hard time saying it. Not a lot of relationships here. Very picky,
But
some here.
He says happiness is going to be there in later in your life. There's someone out there for you.
Yeah, this was
Well,
optimistic.
quoting John Lennon, happiness is a warm gun. Bang, bang, shoot, shoot. Anyhow, but I actually see, I see your coolness in love tied to the intense, powerful passion that you have that other people may not see, but that actually attracts people to you that are so overly intense and passionate. It's like you either freak the fuck out of other people or they freak the fuck out of you. And I say other people, I mean when it comes to intimacy in general.
Yeah. That tracks.
Yeah.
That tracks.
Is there any other astonishing revelations in here? Is that it's pretty encompassing of
also, I mean, there's
good.
I do have a question,
I mean,
Professor.
Look, I also think that your chart has a very high level of imagination to the point of that sometimes you may not know the difference between what's imagined and what's real.
We're gonna look at my Twitter and then look at this and be like, you really can't tell.
But also that to me is translated as a very high degree of creativity, of imagination, of dreams, of fantasy. You know, your fantasy world would make most people like blush or die or just want to kill themselves or you. You know, and yet the other piece of this is that there's also a bit of genius tied to all of that. And I think part of the struggle in your life is how do you find a way to get that genius expressing, because it's there. I see it. I mean, it's unquestionably you're a smart, intellectually smart guy. And in some ways, your emotional world pays a price because you're intellectually so smart that it's so intense for people that it heats things up too much too fast.
Are you just saying that because Sam called him stupid earlier? Because
you don't need to
make him feel better. Come on,
you do not have to pull the punches. Man here, so.
actually, I wasn't listening to whatever Sam said.
Good, that's a good policy.
Yeah, that's probably that's the smartest thing you've done since you came.
I really like that part about the genius. Hiding a little bit.
Genius.
Yeah, you like that part where you said you were smart?
Yeah, shut up.
No. I really think that there's a part of your chart that is a bit of a slower burn than the appearance of how fast you move around in the outer world or how it looks like it, and that there's a part of that whole thing that's a cover for your sense of you haven't found or haven't gotten to the place where you think you could be, should have been, need to be, what you fill in the blank. I don't know how that works unless we had a
whole podcast about this like a week ago.
Yeah, well, I wasn't there.
I know, but
yeah,
right on the money.
Anyhow, and you know, timing wise, yeah, you know, oof. Wait, let me just think here. Pisces 10 degrees.
It's dumb as shit.
No, I think if we were to put in, let me just go back and put in the other. I
read the wrong chart here.
That would be funny if he's like, yeah, actually, it turns out I was wrong on that.
No, I was reading the chart of this flea that bit my dog earlier. Sorry. All right. So again, here we have your chart in the center. Here's still this, you know, lineup of Mars, the feisty Gemini, you know, kind of ready to do, you know, verbal sparring. And when you do, it's like probably anyone who engages you on that wishes they didn't. But here's this more serious in love. What's interesting is that over the past weeks, maybe even month or so, let's actually do this a week at a time. I'm looking here at Jupiter in the sky, over going back to mid-May. Jupiter in the sky was actually lining up with your Saturn, maybe bringing you an opportunity that that you couldn't take or weren't ready for, or maybe just something that just seemed like something that you really wanted to do. And by the let's
to the
see
girl
here,
after
by
first date. Oh my God.
yeah. Well, and actually, I would think that by the beginning of June, we're just like only, a week and a half away from that. There might have been something that was actually kind of sweet or cool, or, that worked on some level. This might not have been a bad period for you, this period of,
All right.
May into June on some level, coming, obviously, coming into your birthday, which we all have also just moved through. Now, the other thing, though, that I would note here is, unlike looking at Sam's chart where Saturn was the main culprit of what was going on, there was a bit of a Saturn junction actually right around there. Let's just see where this went to. Hold on one second. Yeah, no, we're looking at right around the beginning of February of this year, end of January, beginning of February, there may have been a little bit of a speed bump that may have had to do with you coming on too much, too hard, too strong, having some sort of something with someone that involved either a separation or something wasn't working, this probably had to do with something at home, family, mom, woman relationship, and something that may not have been really clear to you as to what the hell was going on. I don't know if you relate to anything from that period of time. Food for thought, if
Pretty
not.
foggy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said. Pretty foggy.
Yeah.
Well, in a way, you're. I mean, in a larger scenario, you're at a period of time where it's almost like your forward movement in life in general is and has been a bit foggy. It's almost like you can use your imagination and create.
I'm on a podcast. Yeah, it's been interesting.
No, but there's something here about your future being a little bit cloudy for you, and I don't think that this is a short-term thing. I think this is something that will take a year or two kind of to really resolve, and that's okay. It's just you may not have the clarity about where you're going in life and what you want to do for a while. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, other than it might make you crazy because you think you should know what the hell you want to do or where you want to go. But I think that this is a time, I think, if you can, to spend more time in the realm of, imagination, dreams, creativity, than trying to actually accomplish what you think you need to or want to accomplish in the outer world.
Gives you an excuse to loaf around a little bit more for like a year.
I like that. Yeah, I'm still a young kid.
Yeah.
Well, and then speaking of young, if we run this thing all the way back, all the way.
Yeah, let's talk about his childhood trauma.
Let's talk about the divorce.
Yeah.
All right. So first major trauma would be you were born in 98.
Yeah.
So for you, we're looking at like early 2000. Late 2001, 2002. So you're like 3-4 years old, I guess, right?
Yep, the divorce.
So and you see what's happening then. Very different timing than Sam's chart. But what's happening is Saturn, when you were born, Saturn, I mean, in a way, you were born into an environment where even though there wasn't a divorce, there might not have been a lot of warmth expressed between your parents.
It was not a.
All right,
it wasn't going to work. Yeah, it wasn't.
But by the time, let me just go back here a little bit. Yeah. But by your birthday, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, by your third birthday, shit was already cooking. I mean, the divorce may not have actually happened, but there was already, kind of held back communication. It was cold. And it really wasn't until, well, 2002 and even later in 2002, until almost your fourth birthday, when everything went down. But that whole period of time was Saturn moving through this area of your chart where your Mercury communication, Mars, your energy, Saturn over Mars. This was frustrating for you. Even at age 3, 4, we don't know what frustration is, but there was, you could feel it and were angry maybe because of what you weren't getting without really knowing what it was you weren't getting. But in some way, this period of time of going 2001 to 2002, 3 to 4, 8, in some ways, that period of time for you was like a pulling in and getting serious and in some way learning that you have to fend for yourself. I mean, how do you do that as a 3, 4-year-old? You do. Whatever it means. There was something here that was like a hard lesson. And then it really took until Saturn moved around. Now we're looking at 2028. So we're looking at age 10, but let's zoom in on that a little bit. We're looking at, yeah, here we go. So we're looking at 2006. It's like almost, it didn't really happen. That's 8. And then by 2007, it's really like the summer of 2007. So like you've turned 9, and there's either a change at home or a change of parental dynamic. Something happens around age 9 that's more internalized, more emotional. But I think it's an important piece also. And there's a bit of, kind of, rock and roll through this whole, through these years. It's just like, we could even go back to, the 2002 period. Oh, that whole period, it was emotionally unstable. The world you were living in was not as stable, which I think now goes back to, the tentativeness, of being in an emotionally vulnerable situation goes back to very early childhood. And even though you couldn't put words around it, in some ways, you carry some of those, wounds or feelings from that period of time that make you not sure about the whole damn thing. And that's understandable. Anyhow, that's it.
Do you find this to be true?
Yeah. It's
happened when you were 9?
There's incredible.
Yeah, what happened when you were 9?
I don't know. I don't remember year stuff like that specifically, but there was a lot of my parents dating new people and breaking up all the time through childhood, or having to stay home by myself all the time, whatever. People going to jail, blah blah blah. There's some stuff around then, and I've been called an emotionally unavailable man before, so not super shocking to hear that when it comes to love. But it's cool. It's cool to.
Well, and again, from an evolutionary standpoint, an astrologer would look at this chart and say, it's not like you can't get love. It's that part of the reason for this lifetime, for you being here, is to confront those things that have haunted you early in life or in past lives, if you believe in that, whatever, I don't care. But there's something about this presents you with an opportunity of digging into this stuff and working with it so that, in fact, you do get what you want or need.
Interesting.
But it may not come as quickly or as simply as it appears to, and I'm going to say appears to rather than saying as it does, as it appears to for some other people.
Not to rewind or anything, but you said nothing about love with me. Am I just a loveless person?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was wondering why this marriage was so cold and dormant. Okay. Thank you. You cleared that up. See, once again, strikes true.
No, actually, Sam, going back to your chart just for a quick moment, you were born actually with Venus in Virgo, very close to Mercury, in between Mercury and Mars. and you see that little piece of an RX, Venus was retrograde when you were born, which means that Venus is even louder than it is normally, which sometimes makes it more difficult to express or to find. And although Mercury, intellect, communication, is very at home in Virgo, Venus is not, because Venus in Virgo is very picky. It's very, it has its list, and everything has to conform to being right. And there's a lot of passion and intensity, but it's hard to find a way to find the exact time, place, person, whatever, for it to zap and express. But I would definitely not call you loveless in any sense of that word, but I would say that your Venus is a bit more, it's more complicated to try to find a way to express it. And part of what it does is it connects up with the Mercury and Mars, which is almost like it's easier for you to throw words around things and to do to be a guy, to do things, to take action, to make something happen, than it is for you to actually, express the or to connect with the feelings themselves. But no, certainly not loveless. And I would also say for you that for you to love something, not only something, someone, whether it's wife, children, boyfriend, I don't give a shit, whatever it is, that person or that thing has to meet a very high level of standard, and in some way it has to be able to meet you on your level of weirdness. There's something about the judgment that you have of someone who can't be as crazy or strange or out of the box or rebellious or whatever as you. They lose bonus points.
Well, on to different things. No, on that chart, I was actually I asked. All right.
You can't handle the truth.
But you're jeopardizing my marriage now, so I think you're a quack. No. I was going to ask you about these. You said they were. What was the word for them? Not chapters. Not
houses.
The houses. These houses. Is there any significance to when there's just like a huge gap? Like there's a quarter of them that just don't have anything in them. No. There's no significance.
There's different ways of looking at the data, and no, every house has a level of importance. Without going too technical, we astrologers would look at what sign is in that particular house. Like your seventh house of relationships has the sign of Pisces on it. And that would then tell me to go to Jupiter and to Neptune, who are the two planets that are associated with that sign, to begin to unfold it. But no, it does not mean that there's no emphasis. However, when there are a bunch of planets, like here in the sign of children and creativity, or in the sign of self, the who you are, or in the sign of the hidden things of spirituality and imagination, where there are bunches of planets, those can be more important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bryan, we ready?
This is awesome, man.
Dude, yeah. Bryan, let's get in.
Censor.
I hope mine's more smarter than yours.
I mean, dude,
what the heck? This looks complex. Can I go pee before we get into just breaking down Bryan into fragments?
It's your show. You're the editor. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
I say everybody takes a pee break. Come on, you're old, dude. You got to pee at some point, right?
Before we take a pee break, I just want to say that Bryan's dick is bigger, but he'll never tell you.
No, he tells me.
It's already working.
Yeah.
It's already all right.
Bryan, you love this.
Yeah. No, his. By the way, for the audience.
Pull him out.
For the audience, his girlfriend has said that he has a Chad dick. Oh. Has been said. There might be some truth to that.
Has that been said?
That has been said.
She talks about
it.
While you weren't even there, so it's not like she was there to guess.
Wait a minute.
That's weird.
Help an old guy from another generation. When you say Chad, all I can think of is hanging Chads on a voting.
No, Chad is like a jock, like it's like an alpha. Like
Chad
no,
dick,
that's what she said. That's what she said.
Okay,
I didn't say she was on the bleeding edge of being hip. I just said those were fucking words. All right.
I will actually go pee as well.
You see that purple
really
line?
quickly.
It means that he pairs up and dates dumbasses.
8
That you
inches,
stupid,
yeah.
you stupid turns of phrase like Chad Dick. But anyways, I'm gonna go pee. By the way, is it? Oh, okay. Is that Brian's true one right there?
Yeah, that's
like
Brian's
the
true
ultimate form.
chart. Yeah.
Dude, he looks very. I'm not. Before you even break this down, as a guy that has known astrology stuff for an hour and 50 minutes.
An hour and 50?
Yeah. I'm just gonna say Brian seems very one-dimensional based off of his little sign thing right here. His
Yeah,
map.
my shit's all crowded.
Yeah, your stuff's crowded. I think.
Oh wow! Yeah.
I think this means that you probably are
Well, tell
autistic.
me when we're
One-dimensional.
on again.
Okay, we're on.
Oh, we're on.
All right, so we're looking at Brian's chart now, and I often teach my students to, when you look at a new chart for the first time, where does your eyes go? What's the first thing you see? And I actually jumped out. I saw 4 things like screaming at me the same time. The first,
Screaming. Oh, God.
well, screaming silently.
I really hope yours is an awesome.
The first
Silently
one,
screaming. That's Brian. Yeah.
the first thing that I saw 5 planets, or 4 planets, and the north node of the moon, which is a point at which the moon's orbit around the Earth intersects the Earth's orbit around the sun. It's a very important astrological point. But Venus, Jupiter, the nodal axis, the lunar nodes, the moon, and Pluto are all within one sign. And if this birth time is accurate, then this is also your ascendant or rising sign or horizon, which doesn't suggest one-dimensionality, but it does suggest an emphasis in that Scorpio realm, even though if someone asked Brian and he felt like playing, he would say, I'm a Virgo. Well, you are a Virgo, but you're actually in some ways more scorpionic than Virgoin, and I'll explain what that means in a moment. So one thing I noticed was just this cluster. I think the technical word is clusterfuck, but cluster is good enough.
All right.
Of Scorpio energy. The second thing I noticed was that the sun, whenever the sun or moon are lined up closely with anything else, that is more important than other things. The moon in your chart in Scorpio is lined up very closely, just a couple of degrees away from Pluto, and Poob all of a sudden takes a second level position in emotional intensity. That goes, I think, even though Poob may wear it closer to the surface with his words, I think that Bryan has a much higher level of emotional volatility or intensity than anyone else here.
Yes.
All right. Secondly, the sun is lined up with this special K, which is actually a symbol for Chiron. And Chiron is an intriguing thing because it was discovered in 1977 and it was immediately determined to be a planet. And then they said, nope, it's an asteroid. Nope, it can't be an asteroid because it's outside of the orbit of Saturn. Okay, maybe it's a comet. Nope, it's an irregular orbit. And it created a new class of things going around the sun that astronomers call centaurs. And they call them centaurs.
Badass.
What's that?
I said that's bad. That's just sorry. I'm interrupting. It's a very badass
I'm a
title
Centaurian.
for a new astrological phenomenon.
Yeah, well, the centaurs were half animal,
Chiron,
half
he's
horse,
a
half human.
centaur, right from Greek mythology.
Yeah, and the centaurs were basically half horse, half human. And so
Horse dick on Bryan, human.
there you go.
Bryan.
That's right. We're back to that.
Shalong.
But in mythology, Chiron was this brilliant teacher and healer, and Chiron was wounded and was considered to be on his deathbed, and the gods, the Olympian gods, took mercy on Chiron because he was such a brilliant healer and teacher. He healed some of the Greek, major figures in Greek mythology. He was Hercules' teacher. He was Asclepius' teacher. And so they took mercy on him and they granted him immortality. However, they didn't cure his critical wound. So Chiron turns out to be that part of each and every one of us humans that has some wound from early in our life that no amount of sex, drugs, rock and roll, psychotherapy, psychedelics, meditation, yoga, love, it's not gonna make it go away. It might make it manageable, but it's that part of every one of us that has what astrologers call the wounded healer. It's the how do I fix others? How do I help others? How do I fix it in others so they don't have to feel the pain that I somehow feel inside? And so Chiron in your chart is an important player because it's part of your story. It's lined up with your sun, and it's also harmoniously connected. That's this thick blue line to Mars in Cancer. And Mars, again, is the planet of assertion and direction and aggression. But in traditional astrology, Mars in Cancer is kind of like a bad deal. Why? Because Cancer is the sign of nurturing. Cancer is the sign of caring. Cancer is the sign of mothering. And in a patriarchy where guys have to be tough and have to rape and pillage and conquer third world nations, Cancer is not necessarily a great place. However, that's just an old patriarchal bias because Mars in Cancer is probably better than any other sign at defending one's homeland, feelings, family, emotions. You know, that's what it's all about, because there's a part of that Mars in Cancer is afraid of being washed away by the tides, and therefore it establishes very strong boundaries. And now we come to the other thing that I said when I saw the chart. I saw these things that jumped out at me or that screamed at me, and that is that Mars in Cancer, tied by a blue line to Saturn in Pisces, tied by blue lines to all these planets in Scorpio, create an equilateral triangle in the sky. We astrologers call that configuration a grand triangle or a grand trine. And it's in
the triangle.
It's in water signs. In astrology, all signs are fire, earth, air, or water. And Jung based his entire psychology, he called it the psychology of 4 types. Fire, action, intuition. A fire doesn't think about what it's going to burn next. It just does it. It knows. Fire. Earth is practical. Air is logical thinking. The Aquarius Gemini is logical thinking. The Leo is fire. And the 3 water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And in Bryan's chart, there's a grand water trine. And like this, in a way,
yeah.
Well, in ancient astrology, this was considered to be a major blessing, because it's like, blessed. Well, it's like this just works. It's like superconductive, energy just running around in a circle. That's the good news. From a modern standpoint, the downside of it is that the patterns work so well, it's sometimes difficult to break out of one's patterns. And here, because it's water signs, it's emotional patterns. This is the part of your chart, your life, Bryan, that says it doesn't matter how awesome or how fucked up things are. You can go home, you can go to your room and close your eyes and turn on your emotional closed circuit TV, and it's yours. It works. It's familiar. You know it. You're okay.
That tracks.
A brick wall. Like that tracks.
Yeah.
Like a brick wall. Now, again, this does make a sense of solidity and completeness, but with all those planets in Scorpio, I would imagine that most people don't have a clue as to A, what you're feeling, or B, who the fuck you really are.
Yeah.
Because that water sign, grand trine, especially Scorpio, gains its power by not putting everything out in the open. Scorpio is about the hidden part of the cycle. Scorpio, it relates to to the planet Mars, the asserter aggressor, but it also relates to Pluto, the planet of death and transformation. So when we're talking about hidden shit like death and sex and taxes and money and power and ultimate fear and whatever, those are the things that Scorpio thrives on. And yet, because this is all tied up into this grand triangle, you know, for you, it's okay. It works. And you can even make it look good, but it doesn't mean that anyone actually really sees it all unless you feel safe enough. And there are people, there may be people in the past, present, or future where you feel safe enough to untangle or unfold some of that in yourself and with them. And that's when the real magic begins to unfold. And that, you know, if it doesn't happen regularly, it happens, or it will happen, or it can happen. But I would say, just looking at your chart, you know, that your chart is intensely inner driven, emotional, and yet your Mercury in Libra, the people pleasing, easygoing sign, gives you a way in order to interact with others that keeps all that other stuff hidden. And then we have this very powerful alignment of Chiron and the Sun, which is more about the intellectual, practical, what you learn, what you teach, what you do. I mean, you have a chart that, I mean, you could be, you know, the doctor, you know, not that you are or would be or will be, but there's a
blood
part
makes me squeamish. So, nah, I lost. I said blood makes me squeamish, so I lost that one.
But I will say, like what you were saying earlier, I've never seen Bryan have like a bad day. But I've never seen him have like a really good day either. He's always just like, I'm like, what? Like Bryan's just there. He's vibing in the moment.
Vibing, dude.
Yeah.
All right.
Like,
so there's a thing in Chinese
his emotions a lot.
There's a thing in Chinese medicine, you know, like where acupuncture comes from, that basically says joy and grief are on the exact same axis, and you only get as much joy as you can experience grief. And I think that some of Bryan's chart, not to go too heavy, too deep, too fast, is about the grief that you have, that you know you have, but you don't let yourself express, or that you don't express outward, which at the same time then prevents you from having the joy that is there for you. And I would say this is not a life sentence. This is just a starting point. And at some point in time, some shit will happen that will basically break that grief open, and then you'll get a chance to experience the joy that you may feel like you've been cheated out of, or that you can't get to, or you look at other people and go, I'm not going there because I know what comes after joy. Grief. You know, and I'd rather just vibe and be in the present and just stay cool with it all. But that game only goes so, you can only up level that game so far. And yet it's a very powerful game, and it's a game. And as a game, I'm not judging it as everything's a game. Before we went live, I think, I said, you know, astrology is a game. It's a game that we play in the cosmos because it's the only game we get to play. And the more we know about our own internal dynamic, whether we do it through astrology, or whether we do it through therapy, or whether we do it through meditation and yoga, whether we do it through Jesus Christ, I don't recommend that one, but whatever it is that you do it through, you know, it's, you get to up level your game. Or out of fear, we get to go and have to play lower level games again and again and again. But it's a game. It's a video game that's just seems to be real.
This is awesome. It's like going to couples therapy. I'm learning a lot about Bryan.
Honestly, a lot more revealing than Don Tony. Like you said, a lot more, you know, about Bryan than I heard.
Don Tony wouldn't say anything.
Yeah, we had a therapist on here. This therapist wasn't able to crack these nuts, but this guy
is a fraud.
He has a doctorate. He makes sure to always say, "I'm not a doctor." But
I told you, I have a doctorate diploma that I made in Photoshop.
Yeah, well,
it's like the Wizard of Oz. It's like the Wizard of Oz. I have a brain.
So who would you say out of the three of us wins?
Yeah.
I would say out of the four of us, I do.
Oh, yeah. What is
but the three of us, take yourself.
Who's second place?
I was going to ask in the end.
Just rank us as people. Break us down. Have you ever read someone's chart and then said, "God damn, like this person's all fucked up"? Like, what's the worst chart you've seen?
I can tell you who some of the worst humans I've met were, but a chart in itself can be hard or easy, or let's say difficult or easy, but in no way is it an indication of what we can do with it. It's not about the chart that, it's been said that you're walking down the street one day and you're whistling and it's beautiful out and you're having a really sun's up and you're taking these big long strides and you see these couple of guys on a second, third story next to you doing some work on the bricks on the top of the building. And as you step forward, one of them knocks a brick off and it lands on your foot and it breaks your foot. And all of a sudden you're in pain. Oh, fuck, it hurts like shit. And you're, and you look up and they don't even realize they've knocked a brick over. And meanwhile, they've broken your foot. And you're yelling at them now. You guys pay attention, and they don't hear you. They're just having a lot of fun. And now you're really pissed and you take about 5 steps backwards so you get a better angle. And now you can yell at them and really yell at them. And as you do, a truck comes down the street and kills you, runs you over. Fate or free will?
Oh, I thought that was like a comedy sketch.
The brick.
Kind of funny.
Wait, no, this is a really important thing. The brick landing on your foot was an act of fate, but your death was an act of free will. In other words, we can have the easiest fucking chart in the world and just spend the entire life, sitting on the couch drinking beer and die of, alcohol poisoning and just have done nothing with the absolute easiest chart in the world. Or we can have the most difficult chart and it can drive us to become, a Nobel Prize winner in physics or some damn thing because we're so driven to do something. So there's no good or bad, although there are a lot of most astrologers, would say, oh, this is bad, this is good. And there's a whole traditional Greek-oriented astrology, which I think leans on that more. But in modern terms, the charts are not better or worse. They're just, here's a starting point. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
There's a wonderful poet. I don't know if you know the poet Mary Oliver, who's just a brilliant poet. And in one of her poems, it's this description of the beauty of this swan taking off at night. And it's just like, and the last line of the poem is, it's like, have you seen it? Have you seen the magnificence of this swan taking off? Have you seen it's spread? It's just all. And then the last line of the poem is, so what will you do with your precious life? It's just like, it's like we all have a shot at something and, and we get to take it in different ways. And some times during our life, some years, some months, some decades, we have an easier time or a harder time. Some people seem to have a harder time forever and others have an easier time. But sometimes the ones with the harder time are the ones who have the better midlife or later life because Well said. So, and the thing about timing in Bryan's chart is I would look for when Saturn moves through fixed signs. Why? Because Scorpio is a fixed sign. So when did Scorpio move through? I'm sorry, when did Saturn? Let's go back to the double chart here so that Bryan doesn't feel cheated.
Double chart.
Well, here you are in the middle. This chart has more on it than I want. Hold on one second. Let me just clean this up. Displayed points. And let's go back to something here. Okay, here we go. This is good. All right. So here's Bryan's chart. Right now, Saturn in the sky has gone around almost one time. And you can see how it's at 7 degrees of Pisces. But Bryan was born with Saturn at 8 degrees of Pisces. Saturn has gone around 360th of a circle. It's 1 degree away from completing. But here's the fucker. And that is that if we moved Saturn here a week at a time, Saturn is just at that point where it begins to turn retrograde and it begins to back up. There it is at 654. So Saturn in the sky it's almost like, this is going to sound like a worst nightmare, but it's really not. It's really it's a really upside to this. It's almost like having sex and not being able to come. Brian's at a point in his life. No, bear with me here. No, bear with me here. Brian's at a point in his life where this is an eye of a needle that has to do with growing up, taking responsibility, making decisions about being who you want to be when you're in your 30s and 40s and so on. And yet you're there, you're feeling the pressure, except the universe is saying, okay, we're giving you an extra few months so that you don't have to do it today. Whatever the decisions are that you might think.
Dude, I'm a procrastinator. That's not good.
Well,
that's not good. Well, the universe should be giving me a break.
It is ultimately good if you understand that Saturn will actually be back and line up where it is where it was when you were born by early next year, January, February next year. What this means, Brian, and this is really important, what this means is that between now and next February, this is the time when you should be thinking about shit. You don't have to necessarily put a whole lot into motion, but maybe even little bits. But by next February, you're going to have to make some decisions. And those decisions that you make, if you don't know how to pull the sails up on your ship, and you don't know how to sail during a storm, and you're going to be trying to go to the books and try to figure out how the fuck to do that, it's going to be too late. Now's the time for you to be doing some of that thinking and some of that deconstructing of what's working in your life, what's not working, who am I now? What do I want to be? How do I want to get there? What do I want to be in life when I'm 60 years old? And of course, there's no answer to that. And at first it'll just be a blank. But the more time that you can spend these next few months imagining something in your life at age 55, 60, 65, as you get closer to this Saturn return period, in early 2024, then the trick is to go to your imagination and have yourself in the future call you on the God phone. We're making it up. And you pick up the phone and the voice on the other end goes, "Hey, Brian, it's me at age 60, you." Then you go, "All right, tell me what I need to know. What do I need to do now to get to a place in life where I want to be when I'm in 30?" Because we don't think about this shit in our teens and our 20s. But as we approach that 30-year marker, 29, 30, that becomes important. So that's the most important thing I think you got going in your life right now, procrastination or not. If you wait until 2024 to begin to think about some of this shit, it'll be too fucking late. And that doesn't mean it'll kill you, although it does kill, the famous 27 Club is basically, whether it's Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, John Belushi, all those people who, Kurt Cobain, they're people who couldn't get the responsible part of their lives together. And that Saturn return was so threatening that they took an easy way out. It's not like that happens a lot. It happens in extreme cases. And yet that's a lesson, because you're coming into this period of time where you got some serious shit to do. And the more you do sooner, the easier it's going to be when you actually get to that period of time. Now, I want to, just before we call this part quits, I want to back this up, because I'm wondering, all right, what the hell happened in your life when Saturn was moving through Scorpio, lining up with all of this powerful, intense, volatile, deep inner core of a volcano, emotional energy that isn't expressed and lays under the surface, but is really passionate and powerful? What was going on then? So we're backing this up, and we get to the point where Saturn just was barely still in the end of Libra, just moving into Scorpio. Let's just make, yep. Okay. And so that would have happened, almost in 2012 you were born. So that's 94, 04, 14. So at 18, it was like it almost happened, but later it still your 18th. No. Yeah. Turning 18. Cause you turned 18 in 2012, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So around your 18th birthday is when the shit began to get serious.
Oh.
But it may have taken a bit longer until Saturn actually lined up with your moon. But through that whole period of time of 18, 19, and until Saturn reached the moon was when you were born, which is we're looking at late winter, early spring of 2014. So we're really talking about 19. We're talking about 19 turning 20. So so late in your 19th year and on into the beginning of your 20th year. All the way through. All the way through your birthday and then some of turning 20. That would have been a really intense time when, in fact, there may have been some really difficult, changes on the home front, emotional front, relationship with mom, relationship with women, relationship with your own feelings. And that would have been all the way through, through that, the year of, 1920. So I don't know. I get that you're not going to tell us a whole lot, and I'm not asking you to. But you can basically.
This guy's a sphinx, dude. He won't say anything.
You can basically nod yes or no if you can think of it.
Incel arc. Maybe.
That's it. That's as concrete as you're gonna get, dude.
I was in college. I guess that was pretty hectic. I don't know. Maybe it is one big blur that period.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that I want to go back. Oh, we're doing this a month at a time. Let's do this a year. I just want to take a real quick stop when Saturn was lining up with your sun and Chiron. And that would have been, yep. All right. That would have been roughly around 2008. Is that right? 2008. 14. So that would have been age 14. So around your 14th birthday, and then a little bit after, actually 16. Let's see, there's your 14th birthday is right there. Yeah, so it really would have been holidays between your 14th birthday and that holiday season. And that would have been the beginning of it. And it wouldn't have played through until the summer of your 14th year, before age 15. And so again, this may have been some difficult stuff, and it may have been on the home front. It may have been in how you do whatever you want to do in the outer world, and something just being more difficult, a whole situation of kind of pulling in, getting serious, of running up against walls. And again, that's it.
I could agree with that. Ninth grade? The ninth grade? Summer. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
I am. You don't have to pull up chart wise or anything, because I'm sure you know it by heart. But Rick, I was wondering what are your main attributes, or what do your signs say about you?
I have the sun in Big Dickus.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Classic.
No, actually, at a party, when people ask me my stuff, I tell them I'm a vegetarian with my moon in Crises and my finger in Uranus and penis rising. That's my party
awesome.
line.
That's awesome.
I'm stealing that.
This guy must be a Gemini. Yeah, very clever.
Yeah. Oh no! Who said that?
Me.
Wait, let me get rid of the screen. Wait a second. Let me go stop.
Guilty.
Screen. Who said that? Was that? Yeah. Poob. All right. So the truth of the matter is that one of the things we didn't focus on, only because I just wanted to keep it, within grasp, is the rising sign. I think I might have mentioned it or taken it into consideration. But the rising sign is how you seem to the outer world. And I have Gemini rising. And so intuitive. I like to tell people that, yeah, I'm smart, but I seem smarter and I seem more clever than I really am, because I have Gemini rising. There's a great Ken Kesey, the guy who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and brilliant writer. And one of his books, he has this line. One of the characters says, Ken is warning him, saying, look, we're going to this bar, but it's not just any normal bar. It's a bar where everyone that you'll meet tonight is either ex-CIA or ex-nuclear physicist. They've all done their acid. These are all cosmic kind of guys. And the guy says back to him, "It's okay, Ken. I can maybe with the best of them." That's a Gemini line. And I have Gemini rising. I can maybe with the best of them. That's why when Sam invited me, and said something about, there won't be an inquisition, I said, I don't care. I'm good. I'll be fine.
What a great
I
attitude.
I can maybe with the best of them.
What is Sam?
But in truth, hold on.
Sorry,
in truth, I am an Aries, and Aries is like a Leo. It's a fire sign, but unlike Leo, Leos have the fire and they sustain it. It's like, Leos are loyal. Leos burn. It's like the sun. The sun relates to Leo. It's there. Whether we can see it or not, it's always there. Aries is more Marsy. It's hot when it's hot, and then it's not. It's the fire starter. It's spring. Everything is really cool, and then it's done. And so I am an Aries. And then I have a Cancer moon, which kind of like Bryan's Mars in Cancer. Cancer moon, traditionally, if you're a guy, you don't want anything in Cancer because it's going to make you not necessarily want to go out and rape and pillage and take advantage of those less fortunate, because there's a part of you that, whether you acknowledge it or not, has compassion, although we as humans sometimes take those feelings and we do what a psychologist calls reaction formation. I'm so compassionate, I'm going to kill every fucking one because I don't want anyone to know that I'm a softie. But my moon is in Cancer, and I tell my astrologer friends who know me, I say, with my chart, if I didn't have a moon in Cancer, I'd be a real asshole. And I'm not. I'm actually, I'm a nice guy.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So
this has
that's
been
the short version of me.
awesome.
Were you saying something else, Poob, that I interrupted?
You did not interrupt me once again. This is a goddamn podcast full of us constantly interrupting each other. I was just wondering what Sam and I's risings were then.
Sure. So
I know the moon and the sun now, but
yeah. So Sam's rising is Virgo, and although I didn't say that, I didn't say it for the reason that if Sam was born at 8:20, he would have had Leo rising. But I talked about the Leo and the Virgo in his chart, because the Virgo being the other planet of Mercury, and so I talked about the Leo and Virgo energy without labeling it as a rising. Without knowing Sam's exact time of birth, we don't know whether he has Leo or Virgo rising. I kind of think he might have the Leo rising, but I don't know, because I can see both of those energies in his chart and in the interactions with him. And then Poob has Libra rising. And again, although I didn't say it specifically, it was the part that I said about being able to be nice, about the part of being likable with your cleverness, even though there's a bit more anger or rage or fire that sits behind it. Your Libra rising kind of turns you into someone who holds that energy back because they may not want to offend people that they really want to offend. And then Bryan has the Scorpio rising with all the other planets in Scorpio too. So that's the short version. And, and again,
awesome.
Once again, lines up, I think.
What's the I don't even know what Scorpio is, though. I don't really know.
So here's the deal. And you are a super Scorpio, meaning you got the moon and a whole bunch of planets end rising in Scorpio. And Scorpio, if you think of the scorpion, all the signs of the zodiac have animal totems. The Leo, the lion, roars and beats its chest and is the king of the jungle. That's the lion. Gemini is the twins. There's always interaction going on between communication, between Castor and Pollux, the twin stars. Scorpio is the scorpion, which basically is ruled by its tail. Okay, now here's the thing. Scorpion is, of the 12 signs, the most complicated sign. It's the only sign that has 3 different animal totems representing it, because Scorpio is about transformation. Although it's the scorpion, Scorpio is also represented by the phoenix, which is the mythical bird that rises from the ashes of the runes of destruction. And here the key words are ashes, fire, ruins, destruction. Yeah, ashes, ruins, and destruction. And so the Scorpio is about the transformation that occurs as we process the ending, the death of one thing, and then arise as this magical, mythical, incredible bird. But the scorpion is ruled by its tail. I don't know if you remember or if you know the movie The Crying Game. It's an old movie. There was one of the characters in the movie was before transgender anything was in any sort of public awareness, and the protagonist in the movie basically gets beat up and killed, and she's a woman trying to be a guy, and it's a very sad, it's a heavy movie.
Was it Hilary Swank playing the?
Yes,
it's Boys Don't Cry. I think is the name of the movie.
Okay,
yeah.
All right.
Great movie, by the way. Awesome.
All right, and in it, she tells the story of a frog getting to the edge of a river and meeting a scorpion. And the frog says, and the scorpion says, "Hey, I need a ride across the river. Will you carry me across the river?" And the frog goes, "You fucking nuts? You're a scorpion. You'll kill me." And the scorpion says, "No, I won't kill you." And the frog says, "Of course you will. That's what you do." And the scorpion says, "But if I kill you, then we'll both drown. Why? I don't want to die, and so I won't kill you." And the frog goes, "All right, get on." And so halfway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog, and the frog goes, "Now you've done it. You're going to kill both of us. I mean, don't you know that? Why did you do it?" And the scorpion says, "It's my nature." So scorpion's nature, I sometimes tell people in my life, especially the Scorpios, of which I've been close to a few. I tell them that the most magnificent thing in the Scorpio, being loved by a Scorpio, is the singular most magnificent thing in the world, until the part where they kill you.
Oh, I'm telling Mia that. Hold on, writing that down.
No, don't tell her nothing. Don't tell her anything.
And also, he said that you're expecting bad news in February, so I'm gonna fire you.
Lord.
I think on February 14th.
He's got until February to start planning.
Just to
ahead.
legitimize Rick. All right,
Yeah.
I gotta fire you in February.
But here's the thing. Scorpio is about deep, intense emotionality, and the scorpion, the animal, the scorpion, is ruled by its tail. It puts all of its poison, buries it, and it puts it in its tail, and then it doesn't kill only to feed. It kills out of fear. That tail whacks. I mean, and so that's the nature of the scorpion. However, as the scorpion learns to control its tail, think of it as root chakra, as primal energy, sex, procreation, passion. As the scorpion learns to hold its energy and not kill out of fear, it transforms into the eagle, which becomes this bird that flies higher and longer than any other bird and has this incredible awareness because it can see the big picture, and it only kills for food. And when it does, it comes in, it grabs that fish, and then but it doesn't kill out of fear. It only kills for food. Well, hang on one second. In the third incarnation, the Scorpio becomes the Mahatma Gandhi type of person that says, "I won't ever kill anything," like a dove. It becomes the dove. And so Scorpio, unlike any other sign, is about the power of passion and what happens when we learn how to engage and transform that passion, whether it's fear into love, or hate into acceptance, or whatever. And it's said, I mean, there's a thing that astrologers just all know. If you go to a group of people and someone goes, "Hey, what's your sign?" And I go, I'm a vegetarian. What's your sign? And someone goes, I'm a this, I'm a that. And someone says, "I ain't telling." I go, "Oh, you're the Scorpio." Because Scorpios are just naturally, they derive power from what other people don't know. There's that sense of holding the energy in and being secretive.
You've got a high
Does that answer
ceiling,
your
Bryan.
question? Does that answer your question, Brian?
Yeah,
I don't like how he has.
Go fuck yourself. All right?
He's got a lot of personal growth.
Wait a minute, but you're
and
not
I
a
don't.
Scorpio, Brian. But you're not a Scorpio. You're a Virgo, and that Virgo is more intellectually precise. It's more about discrimination. It's more about it's more about information. And yet you feel like a Scorpio. You have the intensity and the emotional power of the Scorpio, and you come off like a Scorpio. Other people see that. That's your ascendant, but inside you're a Virgo.
So I'm like an intellectual.
No,
Well, you're
he
a
didn't say that. He said Poob was smart. He didn't say anything about you being smart.
No. There's the difference between the air, the Gemini Aquarius intellect versus the Virgo intellect is the Virgo is not interested in being smart. It's interested in applying what it knows to be useful, to be successful, to do something in the real world. Virgo is an earth sign. It's ultimately practical, but it's practical based upon what it learns, what it knows.
So I got to read more books. You're telling me.
Or learn how to read.
Yeah. Literacy is the first step to that person
It's
to becoming your
very
eagle.
practical skill, being literate. Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome. Personally,
Can I go home? Can I go home now?
Yeah, dude. Awesome job.
You've been incredible, Rick.
And
It
when
Round of
when do I
applause.
get paid? Thank you guys. When do I get paid?
Oh,
will
you
send
want?
you
Yeah,
all
I'll
the-
send
takes
you.
care
I'll
of
send you
that.
some
That's
money if
his,
you want. If
Absolutely not. This is a lot of fun. I do want a link though, and I will post it for my people also. If
Oh
that's
yeah,
okay.
and if you have anything you want to like shout out or whatever, feel.
Stall, make it flash.
Yeah, or like we can just
Right
put it in
there.
the description.
at the
your
beginning,
channel
I'll
and
say that
everything,
you're
yeah.
from. Yeah, they'll find you on YouTube.
We'll
It'll be
give you
linked
Yeah,
in
your
there.
news.
Yeah, YouTube, Rick Levine astrologer. That's good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine that in your audience there will be people who are totally interested and fascinated, and yet most of my work. I mean, I actually wrote. I don't have one within reach. I wrote 8 years of mass market books for Barnes and Noble. That was your astrology guide for the year ahead, for the years 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I did it for 8 years. There were 150,000 word books for each of the 12 signs, and it was exhausting. I wrote a daily horoscope column for 21 years that had 10 to 15 million readers a day. It was the horoscope column on Google when they were doing content. It was the horoscope column on Huffington Post, AOL, Yahoo, LA Times. I've done the popular astrology.
Yeah.
These days, I'm mostly focusing on teaching people astrology. And in fact, if anyone wants to learn more about astrology, my Fundamentals of Astrology course is available through Astrology Hub. That's all one word, astrologyhub.com, astrologyhub.com. And I have a number of courses and an introductory Fundamentals of Astrology course there.
Awesome.
What one last little thing before you leave? What does what do like crystals play into this at all?
Crystals.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a big question like that. I feel like that's not like
is that a huge
I don't
question?
know. It seems like it.
Is there like a short version of the crystals? Are they actually important?
Well, here's
there's
a
a
short version of
birthstone,
this
yeah.
that you won't hear from anyone except me. You guys, we are self-aware animated crystals that have been grown in a supersaturated solution of protein amniotic fluids. And we are crystalline in structure, very complex, but crystalline nonetheless. And we're animated and self-aware. What do crystals have to do with anything? When I look at a chart, you saw all those colored lines in the middle.
yeah.
That was just the tip of the iceberg of how I can take and change the power on my microscope horoscope and look at different crystalline structures, because everything in the universe that appears into the three-dimensional world, or even in our metaphysical, mental, intellectual, emotional, spiritual world, is all based upon geometry. We think geometrically. You know, our brain and the structures of what fires neurons in our brain, the patterns that create language are geometric. And so crystals are energetic. And you take a crystal like this, a simple quartz crystal, and you know, without a quartz crystal, we couldn't have a radio. That in fact, every fucking radio and computer in the world has a slice of either quartz or gallium or silicon in it. That's basically a crystal wafer. And quartz crystals in particular have what they call a piezoelectric effect. What does that mean? It means if I take two quartz, this is a quartz sphere, and this is, if I do this, that creates an electrical charge. It's called a piezoelectric effect. And in fact, the original radios that were invented not by Marconi, but by Nikola Tesla, who was posthumously granted the patent on wireless radio, that the crystal radio requires a crystal in order to make that reception happen, because before we created diodes, which, you know, like semiconductors, the only way to get that dielectric semiconductor property was by using a quartz crystal, because electricity can pass through it one way and not the other. And so crystals are absolutely inherently important, and they have vibratory qualities and properties just like we do. And in fact, I would suggest that the reason why astrology works is that we are in effect like bioradios that are tuned to harmonic, high frequency harmonic patterns based upon the ultimately low, very low frequency planetary cycles. Our planet, here's the question for you. Are planets particles or waves?
Yeah, Sam.
All right, so no.
I thought that was for the whole classroom.
So when we go outside and we look at the moon, and we go, well, it's a particle. I call planets BFPs. That's my word for them. Big fucking particles.
Okay.
Because they're particles. When we look at them, we see them as a particle.
Yeah.
But when we're not looking at them, they propagate. The moon 13 cycles a year, Saturn 3 cycles a century, Pluto 4 cycles a millennium. They're you know, do any of you do music?
Bryan does. He won't say he does, but he does.
A dabble.
All right. So music is based upon waves, you know, cycles. A below middle C is 220 cycles every second. We don't see them, but we can hear them with our ear. You go an octave higher, and it's 220 times 2. It's 440 cycles a second for the next A. We can hear rhythms at cycles per second from down around 30, 40, 50 cycles a second, all the way up to 20, 30,000 cycles a second. The planets are moving at one cycle every 248 years for Pluto. We don't hear it, but we're somehow attuned to it. Our crystals are attuned to the higher frequencies, just like when you play a note, the difference between hearing a note on a tuba and a bass fiddle, the same note is going to sound different because of the harmonics. And astrology is ultimately a study of vibrational harmonics. And that's why crystals are important.
Well, that's the long and the short of it. Thanks for that. Yeah. Damn.
It's my short of it.
Yeah.
And I am now working on a book that I self-published 30 years ago, a collection of essays. I printed 1,000 copies. I have about 3 left. The rest are gone. And the book was called Quantum Astrology, Essays on the Physics of Metaphysics. And after 30 years, I've resurrected that book, and I'm writing the real book called Quantum Astrology, because even in quantum physics, things are particle waves. You know, there's no such thing as an electron particle. It's only a particle, or light is only a photon when we go to measure it, but it travels like a wave, just like planets. As above, so below. The in and the out are the same. All right, I'm done.
Awesome. Yeah, that was...
I love you, Rick.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah. Damn, dude. And we went out to go get an astrology guy, and we got
I find the best guy.
the
astrology guy.
Dumble fucking door.
Yeah. Dumbledore,
the
dude.
biggest dick in astrology.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you one of my highest moments as a parent. I have an awesome daughter, 45 years old, and just an amazing character. And I gained street cred with her and her whole network of beings about maybe 15, 20 years ago. We have a local magazine called The Stranger. It's our local alternative crazy shit, weekly. And there's a guy who writes a column. I don't know if he still does, but wrote a column in that called the column was called Party Guy, Party Crasher. And every week he would write a column about some party that happened in Seattle that he either was invited to or crashed. And I had a friend who had a party every year for maybe about 5 or 6 years that would be a party that was in the autumn, not Halloween. And basically everyone had to come to the party and bring something from their past year that they were done with, that they wanted out of their fucking life. And when you arrived at the party, you had a picture taken with a Polaroid camera that was posted on a wall on a piece of paper. And through the night, people who met you would write cool things about you on your picture. And at the tail end of the party, there was a bit of a ceremony in this rather large backyard that was done around an open fire. And I was master of ceremonies every year for this. And in it, yes, I do have wizard's robes and a pointed hat or two. And I do have a couple of like long staffs that make me look like wizardly. And I would do this ceremony that would conjure up the energy and then have each person come one at a time and drop their thing they wanted to get rid of into this blazing fire and move on. All right. So Party Guy or Party Crasher that week it was probably about 10 years ago. In the column had a picture of me in my total wizard's garb holding the staff over the fire. And the caption simply said, Dumbledore, he's gay. Best moment of my life. It was like it. And like I said, I got street cred I did not deserve.
That's awesome. That party theme idea is awesome, by the way. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, guys.
We need to do one of those.
Stay in touch with me. You guys are cool.
You rock. Yeah.
You as well,
Hey,
sir.
enjoy your travels. Too.
Yes.
Safe travels.